Um, hello. Hello, Mr. Kirk. My name is Alex. A question I had for you: the Trump administration recently has been initiating deportation proceedings against lawfully present immigrants for what is clearly constitutionally protected speech. Do you think that that's consistent with our Constitution and our values as Americans?
Got it. So I wasn't sure what. So there's like 5 cases that you could have went with, but I'm guessing you're talking about Mahmoud Khalil and the students, right?
Mahmoud Khalil is one case, but recently student visas have been revoked at this campus and at the University of Michigan.
I'm glad they're revoked here. So, yes, of course it's consistent with the Constitution because they're not U.S. citizens. They're visitors. So as a visitor, you have to be a visitor on our terms. And if you break that compact, you are returned back to your country of origin. A student visa is a conditional invitation. We're going to see who you are, how you act, and how you behave. And if you behave in a way that the government deems to be unsatisfactory, of course you're going to be returned back to your country of origin.
What I would say to that, one, the Supreme Court and our Constitution is very clear that constitutional rights apply to everyone within the United States' jurisdiction.
To a limited extent. For example, you're correct. If a student on Michigan State campus has a student visa and they get charged with a crime, they get due process. You are correct. They get Fifth Amendment rights. But can they own a gun?
I think restrictions on their ownership of firearms
Can they
is
vote?
Constitutional. They cannot vote.
So there are restrictions on rights for visitors. So to an extent, you are correct, but it is not the same rights that we as U.S. citizens are granted. Does that make sense? There are limitations on those rights.
That makes sense, particularly in the exercise of political rights, like voting, which
For
is
sure.
an exercise of political
but
power.
second to that is also political advocacy. As a visitor, you do not have unlimited free speech rights. You don't. They are conditional to you being expelled. And the specific act that you're talking about says that if the government deems the speech of the individual to be contrary to U.S. foreign policy interests, which I think advocating for Hamas is against the U.S. foreign policy interest, then we can send you back to your country of origin. Now, you would have a case if we were all of a sudden deporting or imprisoning U.S. citizens. I would be right there with you saying that you can support Hamas all you want as a U.S. citizen. You have a right to do that. But if you're a visitor, you're here on a trial basis. Your tryout is going. We're looking at how you're behaving. And if we look as if that it's inconsistent with how we want people to assimilate to this country, then you go back to Libya or Syria or wherever you're from.
I'd like to make 2 points in response to that. First, the Supreme Court at least suggested in a case called Kleindienst versus Mandel in the 1950s that the First Amendment does apply to immigrants, to people who are not citizens, and that they do receive First Amendment protections. But second, I want you to think about the kind of country we live in. If the Secretary of State can deport any non-citizen they want for their speech, you would have police and ICE going up to people at protests on campuses, including protests you might agree with, and asking people for their papers. I think that that's completely inconsistent with the values you've talked about of freedom of speech. And I think that's not the kind of country that most people would want to live in.
It's a fair point. I have a different perspective. Do you think there should be any, let's just push your contention to the largest possible logical extreme. Should we be able to have any reason to deport a student who here's on visa?
Yes, absolutely.
What would that mean? By what criteria would it be? Probably like committing a crime, right?
If they commit a crime,
Fair
if they
enough.
committed a visa application fraud,
Great.
there's many reasons
So
that you can deport people.
So let's like wind the clock back a little bit to maybe World War II. And let's say that a student, this is a hypothetical, so it's not a great one. Let's actually do more recent. Let's say during the Iraq-Afghanistan war, okay? Where we were in a bitter battle against Al-Qaeda right after 9/11. I don't think we ever should have invaded Iraq for the record, but that's a separate issue. Let's say a student was here on a student visa from Afghanistan saying that they support Al-Qaeda. Is that worthy of deportation? President Trump makes healthcare affordable again. His 2017 executive order expanded access to truly affordable group plans to all Americans. But Democrats and deep staters have done everything in their power to block it. But now there is a free market solution to Obamacare that was created in response to President Trump's executive order, and it's called Ease for Everyone. And it offers affordable healthcare for every budget starting as low as $59.97 a month. You can keep your doctor, never pay a deductible, and access over 400 prescription drugs for free. Call 888-EASE-123. That is 888-327-3123. 888-EASE-123. Visit easeforeveryone.com/Charlie and join today. That's easeforeveryone.com/Charlie.
I would say it would depend on the factual circumstances. If you could prove that they gave material support to Al-Qaeda,
Well, by
then they obviously should
advocating
go.
for Al-Qaeda
At
as a student visa.
mere advocacy, I would say should not warrant deportation.
Okay,
But
we just disagree. That's fine.
but I would say it's worth pointing out that the Trump administration is not invoking the provision of the Immigration and Nationality Act that allows you to deport people for supporting terrorism. They are not invoking that. They are invoking instead
the Secretary of State
Secretary of
provision.
State.
Yeah, no, I'm aware.
So if all these people supported terrorism, why not invoke the provision that says you can deport people?
Well, you guys can come up, come wait in line.
terrorism.
It's fine. Okay, we'll send some medical help. We got it. Yeah. All right. Let's not draw our eyes there. It actually makes it worse. So let's just keep going. Pray for that person. We'll get them medical help. Thank you, guys. More attention actually makes these situations sometimes worse. So we just disagree, and that's fine. I believe that if you are on campus advocating for Hamas, that basically you as a visitor should not come to this country, period.
All right.
I think it's a pretty simple claim.
Last brief point. Mahmoud Khalil was a lawful permanent resident with a green card. Does that change your analysis at all? You're fine
No.
with so he's not necessarily a guest in the same way as someone with the
Well,
student
a
visa.
green card is a guest. It's not a U.S. citizen.
Okay, so if you're fine, would you be fine with Kamala Harris if she was elected president, saying my foreign policy interest is we're against racism, so we will be deporting any conservative
that's the best
student on
argument you can make.
campus?
That's the best argument that you've made.
So what would your argument be to a hypothetical President Harris?
To a hypothetical, I mean, first of all, is racism a foreign policy objective of the U.S. government? I mean, under Kamala Harris, I could see her saying something as insane as that.
I mean,
So-
the Trump
No, I'm saying
administration cited
you're-
anti-Semitism,
you're
which is
ma-
basically the same thing.
You're making a good point.
Okay, all right, thank you. So you would have no principled response to hypothetical President Harris.
My principled response would be that's not a national security foe that you could target, like Hamas. However, to your point, could this provision be abused in the future? Yes. Why am I largely in support of it? Even more than the specifics, I think we need to push back on this idea that you can behave however you want while you're a visitor, and there's nothing we can do to expel you. That's my larger macro premise, that while you are a student here, or whatever, a visitor, we have a right to send you back to your country of origin if you don't fit into agreed upon American values. But you made a good point. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate it.